Welcome back to Afternoon Live. After growing up without knowing his grandfather and only hearing stories, our next guest was determined to uncover the mystery of his origins. He shares his journey in the new Accordion Eulogies, a memoir of music, migration, and Mexico. We welcome to Afternoon Live author Noe Álvarez. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
This book covers a lot of different times in your life and locations as well. So I'm curious, when did you kind of figure out and discover that this would be your next book?
It sort of kind of found me. Ever since I was a child, I carried a photo of my grandfather holding an accordion. And I knew that he was a musician, but who had separated himself from family. And so for me, I kind of knew that music was an important thing for my family, but that it didn't get passed down. And so it sort of came to me in the past couple of years when I became a father. I decided to ask myself what was the story that I was going to pass down to my own son, and if music was going to be a part of that legacy. So it just kind of snowballed from there.
Yeah, and tell me about kind of your first discoveries of music as a kid in the apple orchards in Yakima. You would sort of just hear that music bellowing through the fields with your family there.
Yeah, so I grew up in Yakima, Washington, and I basically lived on the orchards helping my father and my mother pick apples. And so corrido music was an important music for them. It conveyed a lot of the sorrow, a lot of the pain that they carried. And it was the only time you saw a grown man cry. And so for me, coming up in that environment where we weren't sort of expected to, as a male Latino, we weren't shown how to express emotion. So it was only through the music of corridos that I saw tough men break down, and I wanted to understand that a little bit for myself personally as I became an older man and as I started to question what it meant to be this tough male Latino in this world, and just getting tired of holding it all in, right?
Sure. So you find your way to the accordion and you sort of force yourself, a force of will, to learn how to play it and connect to your grandfather, but then you also kind of discover that the accordion is really important to a lot of different cultures all over the world that we experience here in America as well.
That's correct. It is an instrument that is thriving in the world, but not so much in the United States anymore. So I traveled to Louisiana, spoke to musicians in Mexico, Texas, Italy, and tried to understand what it is that informs these musicians who came at it from a very working class perspective. So my upbringing is a very working class, and the accordion is a working class instrument for me. And I wanted to see what it is that informed the lives of these other beautiful musicians who basically carry, like Jeffrey Broussard there says, he carries a bleeding heart. And so for him, he puts that to work in his accordion, and it is his way to foster those new sounds and heal through those melodies. And so for me, that was an important way to engage with my music and with my history and my ancestors, but trying to come at it my way. I grew up with corridos, but trying to see how the accordion thrives in other communities and how it heals other communities.
Yeah, it's a really fascinating journey, and part of that takes you to Mexico to connect with some relatives that you know or maybe hadn't spoken with in a long time, and there's a really incredible story about surviving a car crash, you and your cousin, and the accordion was in the vehicle and survived as well. Could you even believe when you pulled the instrument from that wreckage?
Oh, yeah, that was a very scary moment when I was on the highway and the wheel broke off and it sent us tumbling on the highway at 70, 80 miles an hour. Just when I was getting close to my grandfather, just when I was trying to get this accordion into his hands. And so, I talk about that in the book, and how it's important for me to carry this instrument back into a very hostile land, and how the accordion offered me a passport into very tough and hostile environments. Because when you carry an accordion in a you want threat, but it suffered some damage, and I'm refusing to fix it. I want to sit with that sound that's very real to the experience that I had in Mexico. Yeah, so that's what it's about, just sort of reacquainting myself with sounds, and learning how to sit with those and becoming obsessed with some of those sounds that we forget as people, sometimes as males and just people in society. We carry our sorrows in silence, we carry our pain in silence. So I just wanted to know what that sounded like. And so for me, the accordion was my way of hearing what it is that was inside of me and then trying to process that on my own level.
It's kind of a beautiful metaphor for carrying on and moving forward in life despite or along with some of the damage that you've suffered along the way as well. Tell me about toward the end of the book, we get a glimpse of you as a father, kind of reflecting and understanding how you're going to carry on your legacy. What's that been like for you in the process of writing this book to think about all that stuff?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. It's an ongoing conversation. My boy's 2 years old, and so now I carry that story, and how he informs my life is very important to me. And I want him to know that he has options. That I want him to know the story of my parents. I want him to know my story, but I also want him to have options, right? I want him to know how to tackle life on his own terms, and hopefully I can pass down this music. I can pass down this instrument as a vehicle for sort of processing his life. So learning how to mourn, learning how to let go of certain things in my past, right? I think is important for me as a father. There's certain things that I don't deserve to carry anymore. It's important to remember your past, right? But it's also important to ask yourself where you went wrong. What did you get wrong about your hometown that I decided to leave as a young kid because my father asked me to? So I carried the trauma of leaving Yakima because my father wanted me to. He wanted me to do better. So that caused me some trauma. I don't want to do that to my son. I want to let him know that he always has a home to come back to. So that he can leave out there and take these adventures of his that he's inevitably going to take. But I want him to take music. I want to take my father's and my mother's story. But I want him to know that he can always come back and reassess what he's doing with his life.
It's a beautiful story and what a wonderful gift, a legacy to leave to your son. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you so much.
We want to share that Noe has a book event tomorrow at 7 p.m. at Powell's on West Burnside. We'll have all those details for you on our website. The book again is Accordion Eulogies. For more information, just head to our website at katu.com. And we'll be right back with more Afternoon Live right after this.